What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Super pumped. We have a guest joining us from Vancouver or from Calgary, wherever. He's right there in the middle up there in Canada. He is a mental health advocate, inspirational speaker, and professional coach. Please welcome Justin Brien. Justin, thank you so much for being here today. We finally made this happen. You have quite the story. Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Hey, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and I like it how it's called Label Free because I labeled myself for so long as a failure, as a loser, as hopeless, as helpless, and that really took gave me a beating, and
Yeah.
it turned my internal dialogue into something that was breaking me from the inside out. So, growing up, I had very low self esteem, low self worth, low self confidence. But to be honest, I really didn't have, I shouldn't have been that way. I had people that liked me, and I was athletic and, I got good grades. Unfortunately, and I didn't even have to try for them, which I really regret looking back on now, like how lazy I was and where I could have been, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm here now and I'm making a difference.
That's
But I really compared myself to other people. I was smaller than other people. I wasn't as strong and stuff like that. So I always wanted my friends were always ahead of me in kind of athletics, and I always wanted to be other people. I wanted to be bigger, stronger, faster, and that carried over into my adult life. In high school I didn't really drink much, but as soon as I moved away, I started hitting the bottle, and from the time I started hitting the bottle, I realized that, it gave me that false confidence. It made me into that funny person. Well, I thought anyways, made
yeah.
me that person who I thought people were going to like. And I'm like, okay, if I don't feel good, I'm just going to have this drink. Well, I didn't know that at the time, but I was quickly became an alcoholic. Like I went from 0 to 100 very quickly to where I kind of started to rely on alcohol. At 21 years old, I moved downtown Vancouver to start bartending. And that's when I pretty much started drinking every single night, to where it would take me about 15 minutes to close the bar. I'd go out for power hour, whatever I could get out for,
Yeah.
and drink as much as I could. And I'd go out by myself. I mean, I'd meet up with all the small group of bartenders and stuff because y'all knew everybody downtown.
Sure.
And then I'd go home and I would drink as much as I could as soon as I got home too. I'd order a bottle and I'd just keep drinking. Um, but then at 24, I like to say I graduated. I graduated into drug use.
Oh,
So 24 years old, I did cocaine for the first time, and I blacked out that night. But my buddy said to me the worst things he could have said to me, where other people would take it as a compliment. So he said to me, he's like, "Man, you were funny last night." So for me, that triggered me. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, when I feel down, I can have alcohol. When I
Right.
need confidence, I can have alcohol. Now, when I want to talk or be funny, I have cocaine now.
Yeah.
Now I have two coping mechanisms. I can put them together and then become super Justin. When what it was really doing was putting me on that downward spiral.
Yeah. Digging that hole even deeper.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. And at 24, another bartender approached me and said, "Hey man, do you think you drink too much?" Because it would take them about 30 to 40 minutes to close the bar and get out, where it took me 15. So the manager would be like, "Well, why can't you do that?" Well, the bartenders knew Justin, he could do that because I needed to get that drink.
Yeah.
I craved that drink and I had to get out. So that night I did the exact same thing. Went out, or closed the bar, went out, and on my walk home though this time I started to ask myself, "Hey, do you drink too much?" And then I said, "Nope. I'm 24 years old. I'm living in this big, beautiful city.
Yeah.
There's no way. I just like to have fun." Then I asked myself again, "Do you think you're an alcoholic?" And I said, "No way. I am too smart to be an alcoholic. Alcoholism is for lowlifes. It's for people that are not normal, and I'm normal. I pay my bills. I go to work." Little do I know that alcoholism was one of my biggest problems, and then I'd become reliant on cocaine use as well.
Yeah.
Fast forward about 6, 7 months, I moved back home, started managing at a nightclub, and a topic of depression came up when I was talking with my friends, and I straight up looked at him and I'm like, you know what, depression's an excuse. It's for the weak. You got to man up. You got to go to work. You got to push those feelings down, pay your bills. And I Don't know why I said it, but I do know why I said it, because I didn't look at myself as a man. I thought I was weak, I thought I was, a failure, and my self-worth was so low that I was trying to impress him by saying these comments.
Yeah.
So at 24, I'm correlating alcoholism with being not normal and I'm too smart, and then depression with being weak and being an excuse. So what are my two biggest problems? Addiction and depression. And I didn't know that. So at 24, I did that, and then I started my downward spiral from there.
So what was, well, I guess I have a couple questions for you, which, obviously is going to help anybody that's listening that might be battling something similar or have gone through it, and or know someone that has going through something. And do you do you know where your depression stemmed from? Is it something that happened when you're in your childhood? I mean, I know you said that you felt like less than a man. But is that how you felt always as you were growing up?
Yeah, 100%. I always looked at other people like, I wish I could be like them. I wish I was as fast or as smart or as when I, as funny when, what, I was like all those things, but I didn't think I was good enough.
Right.
And no one, when I got out on my own, I just wanted to be other people. I wanted to emulate other people, be like them. When, people actually liked me for me, but I didn't like me. And so I had to change.
Yeah.
So when I got drugs and alcohol, it made me to the person I thought I liked. And really, people were like kind of getting finally turned off because I'd become such an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I was good in the beginning, but then I drink too much and I would black out, and then it was no fun that way.
Right. Yeah, that is no fun. That's not a good way to be. I mean, I've had my own similar. I partied a lot too when I was in my 20s, my early 20s. I played around with drugs and definitely alcohol and all that. Never to the point where I consider myself an addict, but I did know there were times when I was using it to self-soothe, self-medicate. And then it's just like, to me, it just wasn't fun. When it stopped being fun, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not helping me. It's just making the problem worse. So, you have to like start looking at yourself and saying, hey, like, what, you have to start dealing with your problems, because you can only do that for so long before you just spiral out of control. So what was your like aha moment? I mean, did you have anyone that came to you and did like an intervention, or did you do it yourself?
Well, it took me a very long time to admit that I had a problem.
Yeah.
At 24, I kept moving around to different cities, and I kept getting let go of jobs because I was an alcoholic. And
Yeah.
finally, at 28, I moved back home, and I said, okay, I think I need some help. And so I finally admitted it, and I have my 3 A's. This is what I call admit the problem, whatever it is, and you got to accept it. Like, you got to accept this is a truth for me, and I got to get better. What do I got to do? Well, I got to ask for help. So I admitted the problem, and I started seeing counseling. Around at 28, I finally got diagnosed with clinical depression, which is a depression that lasts every single day. Depression is something that lasts more than 2 weeks, but I had it every single day, sometimes all day, and it was brutal. I started becoming suicidal. I was also diagnosed with ADHD, social and general anxiety. I had suffered from a couple of concussions, and you mix concussions with mental illness with drugs and alcohol. It's like it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, for sure.
At that time, I was dating a girl, but we ended up breaking up, and I moved back in with my parents, and then she came down on my birthday because we kept in touch. She's one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life, the biggest heart, and we hooked up on my birthday. Now we kept in touch, kind of thing, after that. But then 3 months later, she came. She's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant," and I was like, "Holy cow!" Okay, well, so we got back together.
Yeah.
But I didn't change my ways. I kept doing what I always did. And she was very patient with me, and finally I ended up crashing a car. And I'm like, okay, I need
Oh
help.
no.
I have to get out. I was fine. I have to get help for this.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to go to rehab. So I went to rehab. I have a kid. She was 7 months pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I got to do this before the kid comes. So I went to rehab, but I went with the wrong mindset. So I went to get out of town. I wanted to get better, but did I really invest that? So the thing came is, so I wasn't really accepting that I needed help. I
Right.
knew I needed it, but I wasn't really accepting it. So I went to rehab. And, I worked out twice a day. I ate 6 times a day. I went to all my classes. But, when I got out, my uncle picked me up. And the first thing I said to him was like, I'm not done drinking forever. I'm like, well, what was the point of rehab then? When you're in rehab, there's chances that you should not drink. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I will never say can't. I shouldn't though. It just doesn't align with me. Right.
Right.
So my kid was born, and it wasn't as special because I wanted him, but I didn't. I was scared that he'd turn out to be like me.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't be good enough. That he may become an alcoholic. He may be depressed, and that I'm not good enough to have him in my life. And then I ended up starting going on a downward spiral again, to where 6 months into his life, his mom had to make the tough choice to pick up and leave. And that hurt. That hurt me a lot. And here I am at my darkest time. I don't blame her for a second. I mean,
Yeah.
that wasn't a good environment to be around. I black out. It wasn't violent or anything like that. It's just I wouldn't remember every night, and I wasn't drinking every night like I did in Vancouver. But I go on binges because I honestly I black out and I couldn't control it. It was the weirdest thing. Like, if I could remember the night, I wouldn't drink the next day, almost. So it's like when I blacked out, I'm coherent, but I'm not there. And
Right.
so thinking. So she had to make a tough call to leave, and I went on a leave of absence from work, and I started to become very, very suicidal, to the point where I became an organ donor, got milk thistle from my liver and kidney flush, because I was preparing my body to die. Like, I was preparing to give it away, and I wanted to make it as healthy as I could. I mean, I remember one time I woke up, I got drunk the night before, and I remember that I was not feeling the greatest, and that I was thinking this was the end. I woke up, I had a knife in my bed and blood on my sheets, and stuck on my wrists, and they were cut. And I'm like, oh my God,
Oh my goodness.
I'm very lucky. I am very lucky that I didn't go deep enough or whatever. I know it's pretty in depth, but very lucky.
That's your truth. I mean, this is part of your journey, you know. It's not that wasn't your destination that night. You know, you have but God had bigger plans for you. If you whatever you believe in, you know, there's other plans for you.
Yeah, and so I only got to see my kid like a couple times a week. In the beginning, it was only for 4 hours, and one time when he was 3, his mom dropped him off, and that day I just couldn't keep my thoughts together. I was sad, I was angry, I was confused, I was frustrated, I was lonely, angry. And what does the 2-year-old want to do, or 3? He wants to play with daddy because he never gets to see me.
Yeah.
And we've always been buddies. Like, I feel, yeah, we're little homies now. But I couldn't keep it together, so I grabbed him, I picked him up, and I took him to the store, and I got him some candy and some chips. And we got home, I put him in front of the TV, put a movie on, and I gave him that bag of candy and that bag of chips. Then I went behind him, and I started staring at the back of his head, and he was distracted, and I started crying, and I started to think, am I going to make it? Like, am I going to make it to see him score his first goal, teach him how to ride a bike, see him graduate or even get married? And the answer was no. I could not see myself in his future. And it really started to become evident that he deserved a better father than me when I ended up in the hospital for the 3rd time with alcohol poisoning.
Oh wow.
2nd time in 2 weeks. So I was in the hospital. I had to get my stepdad taken there because my hands were going numb, and I couldn't keep water down. And when you're at that point where you can't keep water down, like, the safest thing to do, like, for me, was actually just slow down my drinking, not go complete cold turkey, because
Right.
you die that way. So I am laying in the hospital bed. I'm white, I'm pasty, I'm pale, I'm sweating, and I have IVs in my arm. And my ex brings my kid. And I'll never forget this. He looked at me, looked at her, looked at me again, looked at her, and said, "Mommy, what's wrong with Daddy?" I'm like, oh, you know what? This kid's better off without me. He deserves a dad that's going to be there for him, who's going to raise him, who's going to teach him how to ride a bike, teach him the ways of life. And you know what? If I end this, my parents, they'll understand. They'll get over it. They'll see that their kid, he's not suffering anymore. My ex, she's smart, beautiful, intelligent, biggest heart I've ever met. She'll find a man for him, and that'll raise him right. And as for him, he's 3 years old. He's not going to remember me. So then I started to think, this kid's better off without me. And when you get in that mindset, you really think the world's better off without you. And when you don't see any end or hope in sight, it's it almost seems like the only option, when what suicide is, it's a long-term solution to a short-term problem. I mean, my short-term problem was, geez, almost my whole life.
Yeah.
But you can get out of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And it all started to turn around for me when I started listening to motivational speaking with who I had no idea who they were at the time, but I definitely know who they are now. Is like Eric Thomas, Inky Johnson, Trent Shelton, and Les Brown. Now these are some of the biggest motivational speakers in the world.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to these guys, and they all have something in common. They keep talking about finding your why. I'm like, finding your why? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
So I started to ask myself, okay, Justin, well, what is your why? What's your why to, keep you inspired, keep you motivated to get better? And so I started to look at that little kid this time, and I'm like, okay, what if I made him my why? You know what? I know I'm a good person. I know I'm capable of a lot.
Right.
So what if I got better for him? If I get better for him, I get better for me. Now, a lot of people are going to say, you got to do it for yourself. Yes, you do. But if you can't, you find a reason.
Right.
And by me finding that reason, it's for me, right? Because I'm getting better for him, which is better for me. So if I can get better for him, I get better for me. If I get better for me, I can help other people. So what did I do? I put the bottle down, stopped doing the drugs, and I went to rehab again. But the second time I went to rehab, I went with the power of why.
Yeah.
Instead of quitting drinking, why do I drink?
Right.
Well, I'm depressed. Well, why am I depressed? Because I have low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-confidence. Well, why do I feel like that? Well, because I compared myself to other people and didn't feel good enough. I felt less than. But the biggest thing is I didn't learn how to talk about it. I didn't know that was a problem. I didn't learn how to cope. So then I'm like, well, now I got to figure out the how. So I know the why. What's the how? So in rehab, we learn things on gratitude, mindfulness, positive affirmations, guilt and shame. Like guilt is you are bad. Guilt is you did something bad. Shame is you are bad. Now, when you label yourself as bad, you really start to take yourself down, right? It makes your self-worth even worse. But then we learned about the power of acceptance and forgiveness. Like acceptance and forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. You don't need to forgive them to their face, but you have to accept the situation, accept yourself, accept your choices, accept responsibility, that it actually, what happened. Like if someone did something bad to you, you have to accept it because it happened. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. Then you got to forgive it. Now you don't have to forgive them to their face, but you got to forgive them internally for you so you can move on, because you cannot create your future by living in the past.
What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Ho, 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 ladies. The holidays came early, not only for you, but for your man here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products that your man will actually use, including their all-new ultra premium body wash and a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Also, this awesome refined cologne. It smells so sexy. My man loves it. I love him wearing it, especially after he's all clean shaven, using the lawnmower 4.0 and trimming those nasty nose hairs and those ear hairs. You know what I'm saying, ladies? It's time to give the man in your life the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use the code LABELFREE20 for 20% off and free shipping. That's right, ladies, 20% off and free shipping with the code LABELFREE20 at manscaped.com.
So we had to do that, and then I got out, and I was feeling great. And for the first 3 months, I was doing awesome. Then I hit the pink cloud. Holy cow, this is real! And I had my son, and I had to give him to my mom because I felt those thoughts were racing again, and I needed a drink because what I'm saying is, you don't choose addiction. However, you choose to stay in addiction. The hardest part of addiction isn't quitting, but it's living in sobriety. And for me, living a sober life was the hardest thing to do because I used alcohol as a crutch to have conversations, to talk to girls, to dance, to even play sports. Right? To leave my house, I had to drink, basically. And if I didn't, it just, life was hard. So I started drinking again. And finally, on January 4th, 2019, I'm like, okay, this is enough. I'm like, if I don't get help, I'm not going to make it. Like I remember telling my doctor, I don't want to die, but I need this pain to end. And if it doesn't end soon, I'm not going to make it.
Right.
So I finally said, Mom, you need to take me to the hospital. So on January 4th, 2019, I hospitalized myself with suicidality and alcoholism. And, with my mom in front of me, my dad to my left, and the counselor to my right, I finally admitted out loud that I had a plan, and that plan was to end it. And, just by saying that, it took 50% of the weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And that day, I turned my history into my future, and then I started to turn my pain into my purpose. And since that day, I've been sober ever since, which is about 28 months or something like that. Now I speak to over 500 people on mental health and addiction, from kids to adults. I've created my own life coaching program, or not life coaching program, personal development program that I help clients go through to, make change in their life. But I've also done 2 coaching certifications and 2 motivational speaking courses. And, the best thing is that I am back together with the mother of my child. I get to see him every day. I get to see her every day. We are expecting another one. But another cool thing is that when I got to coach him in hockey.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to see him score his first goal. I got to coach him in I'm coaching him in baseball. I get to take him to soccer. I'm trying to teach him how to ride a bike, but he's as stubborn as I am. And I actually have his first goal. Puck.
Wow.
I never thought I'd get to see.
Gosh, I'm like starting to cry over here. That is quite the story. Oh my gosh, Justin, that is just amazing. Oh, I don't even know what to say. That was a lot. I mean, how does it feel? I mean, obviously you probably told your story quite a bit, and so does it feel better every time that you speak your truth?
Feels more real. So when I'm okay, I kind of, I started getting on podcasts and stuff like that, and when I was going through it, it felt like a fantasy. Like, I felt so many times where I felt disconnected from my body, like I was just watching this brutal movie.
Right. Yeah.
Like, just watching this poor, pathetic, guy is floating through life. And the sad part was that I actually thought I deserved what I was going through, because I knew every time I picked up that drug, every time I picked up that alcohol, it was going to hurt someone. I was going to miss time at work. I was going to miss time with my son. And no kid deserves to go through something like that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, anybody can father a child, but it takes a man to be a dad.
Yeah.
And I fathered a child in the beginning.
Yeah.
I wasn't being a dad.
Right.
And so I knew every time I did that so the guilt and the shame just poured.
It just makes you sink even lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Wow.
it's, now that I'm out of it, don't get me wrong, I can still get sad, depressed, and sometimes I can compare myself or get self-doubt creep in. But you know what? I've learned how to, question those feelings. If I don't like them, push them aside. I've built up a good team of support network. But it's more surreal now. Like, it's, holy cow, Justin, you were there.
Yeah.
You didn't deserve that, but you're out. So it's really recognizing that, holy cow, and allowing myself to feel that was real. It happened.
Right.
Now you're doing good.
Yeah.
So, fantasy to reality now, but it's turning that fantasy into a reality.
Right.
That it's real, or was real.
Yeah. Well, and thankfully you did not end your life, and that you survived your alcoholism, because you wouldn't be here for your next child that's coming. So, God, there's other plans for you. It sounds like you are definitely living your why by telling your story, because your story is a very important one to tell. Because everybody, anybody that's struggling with something like that, might have a different type of story, but I think that everybody has a similar amount of pain, and that's why they turn to that to deal and to cope and to self-soothe and all that good stuff. So before we start, pardon, go ahead.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Everyone can have a different story, but the pain can almost be the same.
Right. Yeah.
Right? The less than, the self-doubt, the not wanting to be here, but there's a not wanting to die, but not wanting to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a good place to be. So glad that you got past it, and you are a beacon of truth and honesty for anybody out there that might be struggling with facing their own truth. So I think the more that you tell your story, it will help a lot of other people. So before we start wrapping things up, where can people find you? Where are your links? All can you please plug all that? And I'll definitely put all of them in the description of the episode as well.
So you can see me on Instagram at Justin Brien 19. I'd love to hear from anybody that listened to this and they got some out of it, or if anything resonated them, or if they're going to implement some changes into their life. www.justinbrien.com is my website, or just Justin Brien on Facebook. But I'd definitely like to hear from you guys and see what you think.
Awesome. Yeah, that is fantastic. And so, like I had said before we say goodbye, you have any last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to leave with the audience?
Yeah, you know what? I want everybody to know that you are somebody's somebody. When it doesn't feel like it, you are. There are always people that look up to you. And you know what? You may not see light at the end of the tunnel, but what do? You keep on walking until you find that light. It took me a lot of years. 6 years of actively trying to quit drinking. 6 years of actively trying to get help with my depression. Now, another realization you have to have is that you're not alone. 1 out of every 10 people in the world suffer mental illness. 1 out of every 5 will experience it. Now that could be bigger because of the COVID numbers, but
Right.
you are still normal. You're just struggling. And if you know what, if you just get up one day and you just, all you do is get up and you have something to eat, that can be a big win. That's okay. But start somewhere. If you are not feeling like yourself, make a phone call, go for a walk.
Yeah.
First thing you do is talk about it with somebody you trust. And you know what? If somebody reaches out to you, don't try and fix them. Listen to them.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. We'd love to have you back anytime. Give us an update on everything that's going on with you, because you're expecting a new bundle of joy. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow, all that good stuff. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.